Well, thanks for joining me on this 9th and final webinar on the series in 2020. And today it's entitled Sound and the Electromagnetic You. And this is within the context of chronic pain and understanding chronic pain and helping you move forward on that journey with this towards a healing experience. So first, I'm going to recap what was taught on the 2019 series and the 2020 series, and there's a reason for this. First, we looked at back in control.com, where Dr. David Hanscom's work very clearly outlined in his book, but it's also his website, goes over all the activities like expressive writing, like not talking about pain, like active meditation, adequate sleep, the language of enjoyment, forgiveness, having a plan for your health moving forward, having a daily habit, and then on to the more expansive core consciousness concepts like spirituality and serving your community, essentially self-love and loving others. So that was the first couple of webinars, and then we moved on to movement and somatics, because movement is essential to preventing pain and healing pain, and the role of the body and understanding the messages from the body up to the brain via a somatic approach is a really good way of moving forward on the journey. And then the final one was an anti-inflammatory diet, because it doesn't matter what you do, but if you're eating food that causes inflammation, which causes it causes pain, then you're going to be limited in your outcomes. This year, we dived into the meaning of pain, the purpose of pain, touched on the habits and how to get around them to make it into your schedule. We looked at the fundamentals of our life: breathing, water, food, and micronutrients, all essential if you want to optimize the healing of this body and the mind towards healing your pain. We dived into thoughts and feelings, so the whole subject of the mind. Then in the last one, we talked about awareness, mindfulness, and how to integrate that into your experience. Not just within ourselves and what's going on in our body, through our senses, in our mind, but also in our environment. So if you're watching this video for the first time, you haven't checked out those other videos, I encourage you to do that for a bit more depth. But that's just setting us up for this final subject matter: sound and the electromagnetic you. And the reason I chose that is because underneath all of it is energy. And the subject of energy medicine, I encourage you to open up your heart to this, open up your mind to this, because there's a ton of research. As Gabor Mate famously said once, it's not despite the evidence, it's in spite of the evidence. So we need to move beyond the traditional medical sciences if we're going to find solutions for chronic pain. And this subject ties nicely to wrap up the series. And we're going to start with sound. Sound is the first sense that's alive or functional when you were a fetus. It's the last sense to function when we're dying. And sound is like a representation of energy. If you go back to the beginning of the universe, the scientific beginnings of the universe, the Big Bang, it's a noise, it's a sound. Another ancient traditions of the world, the Hindu traditions, there's the Om, the sound, the eternal sound that everything comes from. And back in school in physics, you may remember that light and energy is literally a vibration from high to low or low to high. Like if you've got a singer, you can get a high-pitched note or a low pitched note. There's different frequencies. And the light itself, if you pass it through a prism, you get diffraction, which is a separation of white light into 7 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And when you look at those colors, they've got different wavelengths, different frequencies. That's the width, the height of the wave, and also the length of the wave. So the wavelength is the length of a wave. But it's interesting because if you go beyond our visual senses into the non-visible, we have radio waves, microwaves, infrared waves. So those are the end of the spectrum where red is in our visual field. And then the other opposite end is you've got ultraviolet. So you go from violet to ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma rays. So these are all electromagnetic waves that are clearly shown in physics to be real. And it's interesting, I was just researching this today. When you go for your tests, you may be intrigued to know that if you've ever had a SPECT scan, that's a specialized scan with color, often to look for difficult cases of cancer. And that's to do with gamma rays. That's at the high end of the frequency. And then the one below that is X-rays. That's your classic X-rays and CT scans. Further down towards visible and ultraviolet is fluorescent imaging. For example, you may have this if your anesthesiologist is looking for a specific nerve to block. So they have fluorescent scanning to identify where they're going in the body. And at the other end of the spectrum, way down at radio waves, we have MRIs. So there's lots of ways in science that we're using all the time, these different electromagnetic forms for identification and diagnostic purposes. And I would say it's not only important in investigations, but it is essential to healing and understanding how these waves of different forms of energy can actually help us. And that's what we're going to be talking about. And that's what I mean about the electromagnetic you, because when you go inside of us and you look at physiology, take your heart, for example, every second of your life, it beats with a specific waveform called the ECG, electrocardiogram. And we all know what that is. The brain, if you have a neurological problem, your neurologist may do an assessment called an EEG, electroencephalogram. Similar idea, looking at different brain waves. If you have got a nerve impingement, maybe in the neck or lower back, and your doctor wants to look at, is there a compression of that nerve, to do an EMG, and M stands for muscle, electromyogram. So we've got different ways of looking at traditional medicine, different ways of looking at energy and trying to identify it through electricity forms. If we move a bit further, we have meridians. The meridian energy analysis is a technique, and it's only one technique that's been shown in science to identify these energy pathways through the body. So let's first start with HeartMath. HeartMath is a society or an organization in California that's been studying this electromagnetic you for 30 years. And the key takeaway message is something called brain-heart or heart-brain coherence. And it relates to your heart, whether you get heart rate variability. To keep it simple, heart rate variability is the frequency, or how high and how frequent the waveform moves between each beat. So, if you put your hand on your heart or your hand on your pulse, and you take a pulse, it's beat, 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 beat. But there's a lot of electrical activity going on between those beats. So in the silence, as it were, there's a variation. And if you're a young person, say a child, or a very healthy adult, you're going to have a large variability. But if you've got sickness, if you've got you know, an end of life situation, that variability in the heart rate reduces to eventually you get something called asystole, which you know what that is because that's the flat line in an ECG if the person's just dying. So the electrical conductance through the heart is assessed by heart rate variability. So when they did the studies on this, they showed if you felt connected, for example, if you've got your child, a young baby in your arms, and you feel really connected to that baby, your heart rate variability is larger, and it's a sign of health. Or say that same child is now a teenager and rebellious, and you're like, you know, and you're stressed. Well, that heart variability is going to reduce. You may be aware of certain Apple Watches and other devices that can pick up, you know, whether you should just pick up stress and pick up the time to just stop and breathe. And that's what they're doing. They're picking up the heart-to-heart variability, and therefore breathing will help correct it. So there's many experiences in life where we feel relaxed, we feel in love, feel joyful, feel connected. That's a healthy experience. That's why I teach it's really important to focus on the good stuff, the good things in your life, even though you're struggling with pain, because you get a good heart-to-heart variability. Or if you're having that fight with a friend, or you know, somebody that you've got this enemy relationship going on in your life, you know, that's stress. It's causing this reduction in heart rate variability, which is unhealthy. So the studies have been shown to have multiple markers of health, depression, anxiety, as well as pain, and multiple others that relate to this connection, this heart rate, and this brain-heart connection. Now, scientifically, you could say, well, that's just through the vagal nerve. It's the second biggest nerve in the body. It goes from the organs up into the brain. There's also a motor component that goes from the brain down into those organs. But the sensory component going up to the body, from the body to the brain, is 9 times more numerous in nerve cells, and therefore essential. And that is part of the control system. But in the studies they did at HeartMath, they could measure the effects on other people outside of you. And they could relate effects happening not just within the body, but outside the body as well. Same type of effect, say you're in an elevator and you're all kind of squished in, you feel a little bit uncomfortable because people are within your 2 to 3 foot comfort zone. You know, a lot of people like their comfort zone. So that's what it's about. It's an electromagnetic zone, literally, that's around you. So I'm just going to share my personal journey through the healing for healing chronic pain, as well as the journey into understanding how to heal chronic pain. And you can pull whatever you want from this information. You can, I'm going to highlight a few books and subject matters, because it is rather esoteric, but I think it's important to find where maybe you can get some help on this field. Like I mentioned, the HeartMath Solutions, this is a very old book, HeartMath Solutions. In the back it says The Intelligent Heart. Really good source, scientifically proven program, includes 3 easy techniques that will change your life. Excellent resource for people who want to dive into this. And their website is great for more up-to-date information and newsletters, etc. So I'm going to go back on my own journey to when I was a boy. I never shared this publicly before, but I was around the age of maybe 10, 9. And I remember having, it was a Sunday afternoon, and I wanted my friends to come over to play. Now, this never used to happen on a Sunday afternoon. Happened other times, but not at this time. But I wanted it to happen. So I just sat in the living room and I looked at the door. I remember looking at this door, willing it to happen. Just focus. And lo and behold, out of the blue, without warning, without planning to my awareness, they came. Now, I don't know how long it was, half an hour, 15 minutes, I can't remember. But that was an experience out of the ordinary for a young Scottish boy. But it woke me up to maybe there's something else going on in this world other than the physical. Time moves on, did medical school, and towards the end of my training around 1998 and 2000, I read a study that says that 40% of Scottish people were experimenting in alternative therapies or complementary therapies. What's this about? It kind of shocked me, to be honest. So I decided to do the same thing, to go looking for experiences with different modalities. I myself at the time had chest pain, and I was trying to figure out how to heal it because there was no real reasons for it. So I experimented with rolfing, which is a deep tissue massage that you release the fascia and the muscles. It was a 10-course series. And by the end of it, my chest pain was gone. So that was a very enlightening experience for me. I tried Reiki, which is an energy healing. One of my friends was a Reiki master, so we talked about that. And I went on to do the training in that as well, to a master level. I looked at hypnosis. One of my friends, family members, was young in his career of hypnosis. So I thought, oh, this is interesting. So I went along for 3 sessions of hypnosis. Fascinating. Just to be open to the subconscious mind. And that's what hypnosis is about, being open to the subconscious mind and dealing with subconscious issues that you can't get to through talking, through psychotherapy or other modalities like counseling. And the 4th one was acupuncture. I had acupuncture done every week because my energy levels were so low because I was working so much. And acupuncture was actually an architect that after 10 years of architecture, he had an experience with acupuncture, blew him away. And he just felt like he had to do this. And he went on to be an acupuncturist and learn 5-element acupuncture. So that was my little experience over several years that really changed the course of my understanding of chronic pain and disease and health. As I mentioned, in 1999, I did my Reiki master training. In 2000, after training as a family physician, I went on to learn acupuncture. Excuse me if there's a noise, that there's some lawnmower going in the background outside my house. So I trained in acupuncture. It was funny, I was in New Zealand several years later working as a family doctor, and I was asked to give a talk on acupuncture. So I did some research, and I thought at that time that acupuncture originated in China. But when you do the research, it shows that it predates Chinese civilization. And there was a Stone Age man called Otzi, O-T-Z-I, called him the Iceman, around about Austria, France, and the Alps in Europe, was found murdered. And he'd be using medicinal herbs found in his stomach. And it was also found to have acupuncture points marked on his body, likely from sticks that had been in the fire. So back then, prehistoric man had known about how to help pain because he had osteoarthritis on his joints. You could see that on the well-preserved human being. So the energy systems of the body clearly mapped out on the certain meridians back then. So this awareness of healing, this awareness of energy, awareness of areas of the body that could help us with pain has been there for as long as we've been modern man. Really interesting. You know, in the 1990s, I was fascinated with multiple areas of life, and I ended up in India several occasions, traveling, and a little bit of self-study, meditation, and really opened me up to the world of chakras. And I'm sure you've all heard of chakras, 7 basic chakras in the body, from the coccyx or the tail down at the perineum and your lower pelvis, all the way up to the top of your head, the crown chakra, number 7. But it was interesting because in the latter years, I came across Dr. Sue Morter, and she is a chiropractor from, I think it's Illinois, it's her book. And I was studying with Sue for a couple of years. And during that time, this book came out, which is a great summary of her basic course, which explains the different chakras and and how they relate to health and how they relate to disease and how we can help them. And she was also a yoga instructor, so she has yoga exercises there. She has specific breathing exercises and also other exercises that we really can help shift these energy blocks in our bodies that are related to the physical form. You know, the first chakra is all about connection with the earth, connection with your tribe, where you come from, a personal experience of a real connection with that in the last 12 months, returning to Scotland after a long time. Really felt connected in a new way. It's the first chakra. The second chakra is related to relationships, power, money. It's very interesting. The next one's to do with your self-power, self-empowerment, like your solar plexus. You know, your gut feeling. It's interesting when we look at our language, English language, that terms are used to describe certain things. Gut instinct. Well, it's to do with your third chakra. Fourth chakra is your heart. It's the bridge between the lower chakras and the upper chakras, the spiritual component and the more physical component. Fifth chakra is related to speech and communication, related to a lot of, you know, physical diseases of the throat and say upper lung, neck. And the third eye, or the sixth chakra, is related to intuition. Very interesting chakra to read about. And then the last one is your crown chakra, which is your connection with the external world. So Sue has done a wonderful job at explaining this, and she's got 30 years of experience as a chiropractor helping people in this domain, as well as our regular chiropractic work. And thoroughly recommend it if you feel that that's what you want to look into. Next was, in my studies of energy, was the auric field around us. I mentioned this earlier. You know, you get the 2 to 3 foot zone where you feel uncomfortable if you're too close to somebody. Well, there's a lady called Eileen Mikusiak who's studied this to a great degree and over 20 years has mapped out what this auric field is. When I came across this, it blew my mind. Like, my gosh, really? There's an atomic description and understanding of our energy fields, just like we have it in the body. You know, your liver's under your right rib cage, and your spleen's under your left rib cage. Your bladder and your intestines, your heart, your brain, you know, where those general organs are kept. But yet, in an energetic level, she was able to identify through decades of personal research and then confirmation with teaching others, and then now teaching people around the world on this subject. And what she uses is a tuning fork. And this is something that I purchased from her. She calls it the Sonic Slider, which is a unique device that's made for a purpose. It's got a long arm, and it's got weighted at the end. There's several different types of tuning forks, different frequencies. And over her career, she's learned that different frequencies are used for different situations. But in her, as she's improved her techniques with time, she came up with this frequency, which I forget. I thought it was 128, but I could be wrong. But anyway, and she uses I'll give you a demonstration. So basically you tap it and it vibrates in front of the microphone. So you hear the sound, and you also feel it in your body. You just tap it like this. You can do a technique where you just like push the lymph and push the skin up towards the heart. This is a basic technique she describes. So you can do that for 4 limbs leading to the heart, because that's the lymphatic drainage to the heart. And also around the abdomen and the chest. And again, a fascinating area, decades of science behind it. And I really appreciate her commitment to this new field that I was completely unaware of. And I think one health benefit I got from using that was my varicose veins started to go away. In fact, they've vastly reduced. I would say, probably about 80%. Varicose veins, which is one of the things she talks about in her book, which is crazy, because how can varicose veins be helped by a tuning fork? So this is an energy base, and this is how it works. If there's an energy or a vibration of disease in our body, that is not akin to healing, then the tuning fork basically allows those waveforms to synchronize. So the waveforms become similar, like this. And as a result, there's a coherence, a bit like the brain and the heart, as we were talking about the heart math. So there's a coherence between the frequency of the tuning fork and the frequency of our bodies and our cells in our body. And that can help healing. So I warned you, you had to be open to get this, or to even believe in this. But my personal experience is it definitely calms me down. I do it in the morning, I do it at night, and really a great tool. In fact, I've got certain patients who cannot tolerate the injection technique that I do. And one has came back to me recently and says this has really been helpful for him on his journey with multiple mental, emotional issues that have been unresolved for 30 years. And he's finding relief from his pain with this device. The next is a lady called Donna Eden. Donna Eden is a woman who's a medical intuitive who has got a kinesthetic sense that has been developed since childhood. It's fascinating because she describes her brother as the same, and other people that she's discussed this with who were encouraged to do this as a child, then are able to do it as adults. And it's just like if you learn a language, say your native tongue as a child, well, you know how to talk the rest of your life on that language. Well, that's kind of the language of energy. And she has gone on to do multiple teachings. And I came across it on YouTube initially, then I purchased her book called Energy Medicine. And what is great about this book is it ties in the knowledge of acupuncture and your meridians, which is one energy system. Chakras is another energy system. And she's got another 6 that she's been able to identify, because she's got the ability to see things, not just feel things, but see things. And it's kind of easy for her to identify issues, blocks, and then she uses techniques to clear that. And you know, one little simple one is just to take your hands, so you get a headache, and then you can push it back over your head like this, do it many times. You know, it's just a soothing effect. Another one is put your hand on your forehead and your back like this, and just hold it there. And the electromagnetics of our hands literally has an effect on the blood and the inside of the brain that literally pulls blood back into the neocortex. That's the front of your brain that does all the logical thinking and planning. Stuff that I was completely unaware of. But when you look at the electromagnetics of the red blood cell, it's got an iron molecule, which has got 2 positive ions on it. And it's got heme, which is the heme molecule of the protein, which gives it its red color. So you've got these proteins and iron molecule right in the heart of a red blood cell. And the electromagnetics of our hand can help pull the blood back to her head. And that's how she describes it, which is really interesting. And all I know is it feels good. And when I've done this with my patients, sometimes when they've got really severe headaches, they just feel better and the headaches start to get better. It's like, wow. And it's fascinating. I was reading recently on another lady called Ellen Meredith, and this is her book, and her book's called The Language Your Body Speaks. And note, your body speaks. And she talks, and she's a student of Donna Eden, and she's taken it to a next level where she talks about the language of our bodies and listening to the signals from our body to lead us into what we should do. And you think, oh, that's completely esoteric, that's completely out there, but not really. Because like, what do you do if you're tired? You generally rest. Maybe go and sit down or lie down. You know, so the signals of our body's communicating all the time to us. And if we learn to slow down and be aware, like we were talking about in the last webinar, we get the signals from the body of what to do to try and send us on that journey to healing. So this is what Ellen Meredith's career's been about for many years now, is helping people understand this. And the book is such a jewel of information. And I thoroughly recommend this if you're interested in taking this to the next level, over and above what I was talking about, which is looking at your senses, looking at which is your, your sight and your hearing and your touch and your taste and your smell. Beyond that, to the body and the sort of the inner awareness, like breathing or swallowing, or body movements like somatics that was discussed at the beginning, or awareness of your thoughts and your feelings, your ideas, and also awareness of your environment. How's the environment affecting you today? So this takes it to the next level. It's a really important book on this subject, in my opinion. So the last thing I'm going to mention on my personal journey with healing is last year I was in Stanford University and doing a course called Empowered Relief, run by PhD Beth Darnell. And Beth done a fantastic job down there at doing some research around the role of sound and how sound can have a healing effect on the brain. And her work and her studies have been showing that when we have certain frequencies of sound going into our brains, then it can help not only our pain scores, but also our negative thinking associated with pain, otherwise known as the catastrophizing score. And also function improves by listening to certain frequencies of sound. And I've taken that information, and on a one-to-one basis with my patients, I encourage them to listen to binaural meditation or binaural beats. And if you just go online, YouTube binaural meditation, you'll get a variety of different videos that have got sounds. So the idea here is you pick one you enjoy, you put in earphones or earbuds, and you just listen for 20 minutes. And what that does is more than just nice music, because you pick one that's relaxing, soothing, which is stimulating the relaxation response and calming your brain down. But not only are you relaxing, but you're training your brain to relax. So the training of your brain will help you to relax more, which help switch off the fight-flight response, which will help the pain response. And as a result, you move forward more quickly towards healing. The research study that was done, that Beth's been involved with, shows 20 minutes a day for 3 months, showed an enlargement of the brain areas that are related to pain. Because what happens in chronic pain is the brain shrinks in certain areas. Migraine, the study that was quoted, but this relates to all pain conditions. The brain literally shrinks in the neocortex, which is the outer part of the brain. So in the study, this healing effect showed an enlargement of the size of the area. So there was a functional enlargement seen by blood flow, and also anatomical enlargement. So proof, scientific proof, that sound is literally stimulating our brain into a healing state, which can only but help you. And there are some people who don't like this, and that's fine. If it's not your cup of tea, that's great. Excuse me. So yet another way of science proving that we can heal through different modalities. And this talk is all about energy and electromagnetic you. So, to summarize all of these webinars, and there's now 13 in total, my belief strongly is we can heal. And we're all in a journey into healing. And some do find cures. I've got many patients who find cures from their pain. Some don't find cures. But most, if not all, do find relief from the suffering that's associated with chronic pain. And if I was asked, what's 1 or 2 or 3 things to take away from all of it, what would I say? I would say the core message is this. If there's one thing, it's gratitude. Why gratitude? Well, it connects your brain to your heart to your brain. You can have pain, you can be suffering, but if you're grateful for the small things in life, and I've mentioned this before, and it's not easy. It's not easy to be grateful if you're struggling. but just be grateful anyway. The heart is the source of all healing. And when we have a life that has a language of gratitude, it's something you speak, it's something you breathe, it's something you think about, you write about, that will help you on the healing journey. Number one thing is gratitude. Number two thing, awareness. Why? Because it connects your body to your brain. And your body's communicating all the time. So be aware of the language around this. How's your body communicating? And I believe it will lead you back to healing and will end up reducing your pain. And the third thing, these are all the therapies, the tools, the medicines, the medications, all the things you've been trying for many years. All of those things are important, of course, for different people at different times. But if you do those therapies with gratitude and awareness of what's going on, I think that can further enhance the treatments that you are getting. So just one final book, just to share on the whole subject of, what's your foundation for this thing called energy anyway? And the quantum, I read a book many years ago by Deepak Chopra called The Quantum Healing. And that introduced me to this mind-body connection that we've been talking about. But the latest book on the subject I've read is Paul Levy's book called Quantum Revelation. So this is not an easy read, but it's based in science. It's based in the physics of energy, the basics of the universe, the basic of how things are from a quantum perspective. So if you're up for a challenge, I encourage you to read that book. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. You can get a hold of me at support@waynefemister.com. You have any questions for the Q&A that's coming up on this subject, I look forward to that. I look forward to seeing you. But from then to now, thanks so much and have a great day.